Dreaming of building wealth through real estate, but not sure where to start? What if I told you that purchasing a single family home could be your ticket to financial freedom? In fact, with the right strategies and a few clever moves, you can turn a regular house into a cash flowing investment property. Stick around because in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll reveal how to purchase your first single family home as an investment property. Plus, some tips and tricks to maximize your returns. Hang in there until the end for a special bonus tip you may not have considered. Tip number one, it's all about location. The idea here is simple. Focus on areas with strong rental demand, good schools, and potential for appreciation. Look for neighborhoods with low crime rates, proximity to amenities, and solid job markets. You'll often see this online, training courses within the real estate realm or experienced investors talking about different classifications. Very common. Commonly you'll see like A, B, C, or D properties. Sometimes they'll be done in different ways or listed different ways, like possibly like A would be kind of your premium or newer style properties, just built, high grade materials. And then D typically is your, what I would refer to as war zone. It's high crime. You've got to be much more careful with those properties. There's a lot of opportunity, but you better be willing to go into those neighborhoods and pull out your 6-shooters like John Wayne and be ready to protect yourself because they're a little bit more dangerous, but there is good opportunity. But I think I would always recommend to stick around in the B or C range, again, in the working class. Again, tends to be blue collar, and we have to be careful with describing different individuals that live in these properties, but it just has to do with age of properties and other factors. But again, very common descriptors that you'll want to use. My recommendations in the B and C properties, that's where several of them are, and those tend to cash flow by far the best. And then they also tend to fall in the 1% rule. That is something, again, very common. It's a very easy measurement too to gauge whether or not a property is something that you want to mess with or viable. And essentially, taking, for example, $100,000 property, well, the 1% rule means 1% of $100,000 is $1,000. That's what you want to be able to rent that at the very least, right? You want to be able to rent that piece of property or that house for at least $1,000 a month. If it's more, wonderful. Of course, you want to aim for $1,500, et cetera, or whatever it may be. You want to aim for anything over that $1,000 to cover expenses and some of the other maintenance and repairs and things that happen. For example, one of my first properties actually was a $100,000 property, actually really close to it. And again, in a what I call a working class zone. And I was easily able to rent that for $1,500 a month. So very, very important that you pay attention to that 1% rule as well on any of these real estate investments within the single family home market. And here's a little hack. Use online tools like Zillow or Renometer to research rental rates in different areas. This way, you can estimate your potential rental income before making a purchase. Another way to find promising locations is by talking to local real estate agents or property managers. They often have insider knowledge about up and coming areas or neighborhoods with strong rental demand. Now, if you thought tip number one was helpful with how to buy your first single family investment property, wait until you see what the next tip is about. Next up is financing your investment property. Unlike buying a primary residence, investment property loans often require larger down payments and have stricter qualification criteria. Here's a little hack for securing better financing terms. Look into FHA loans with a 3.5% down payment, or maybe VA loans if you're eligible. Now, these can be great options for your first investment property, or my favorite is simply consider turning your current home into a rental first. Most first home buyers tend to have starter homes, which in many cases will follow the 1% rule. Of course, this means you will first need to start looking for another home to purchase, but it will allow you to purchase as owner occupied and with a much more desirable rate. So once you find that next home and you start getting that process underway of purchasing the new one, and of course you're concentrating on the existing home that you have and getting it ready to go for a rental, maybe getting something out there on the message boards, getting your agent ready to lease that home for you. You might get discouraged about this other home that you're getting into. It might not be the best home that you wanted, because if you're able to apply that 1% rule, maybe it's not as desirable, especially with the market increases and et cetera. Don't get discouraged. because there are some really creative ways where you don't have to typically stay in there that minimum of 1 year. And what I'm referring to is most lenders are going to have it in their policies and their documents and everything that you sign off on that you are not going to turn around and rent that home immediately. That's what allows them to give you these lower interest rates, right? They don't want to take the risk of you turning around and renting that home out too soon and then possibly losing it, getting underwater, not knowing what you're doing, all that kind of stuff. So that's essentially why they all have a clause or policies listed in the contracts that say that they can call the note due. And what that means is, for whatever reason, if they find that you are violating the agreement, essentially, maybe getting out of the home too quick, renting it, meaning, then they could essentially call that note due on you, that you have to pay that within a certain amount of time in its entirety. So if you got a $100,000 house, you'd only put 5% down, you're going to have to pay that balance within that period that they say, hey, we found out that you're violating our agreement and we want all of our money. That is extremely rare that would ever happen. The bank really doesn't want to mess with foreclosing on homes, taking a home over. That's not what they're in business for, but it's not worth risking. It's better to, again, get creative and figure out ways if you want to exit that property a little bit earlier, say in a 6 month. I've actually done that before on a couple of occasions. So we can make it work. Again, we just want to be careful that, again, we're not ever forcing that note to be called due, essentially, or we have to be on the hook for paying that whole mortgage off in a short amount of time. Hopefully that makes sense. Leave comments down below if that wasn't clear. You see that beauty behind me? That is actually my first purchase after our bankruptcy. We lived there and stayed there for a few years, and then we started doing some research and figured out that this easily applied the 1% rule. It was actually in a really sought after neighborhood in my area. And we purchased it for $225,000 and showed that it could easily rent for about $2,500 or more a month. So anyway, we started looking for a new place to live and picked up this smaller home here behind me for about $180,000. But after about 6 months, started having some creative thoughts and ideas and basically started the new process. First I wrote a letter to the mortgage lender or the mortgage company, the bank, right? And essentially started the process for a new home loan, again, for owner occupied, again, not an investment property. And I will talk about that in future videos and some different ways to be creative financing, all those good things. But anyway, yeah, after 6 months, worked on a new process. Then that's when we ended up here. And I rented that previous home very easily and very quickly for about $2,200 a month. And again, that applied that 1% rule. So we were making cash flow on it. And we spent, I think 2, maybe 3 years at this home while our boys were finishing up high school. And then we just started really going towards more of the conventional investor style loans. Although, actually we have one of the homes that we started in a neighboring city, actually about probably 45 minutes away. We put our oldest boy in that one. I think I mentioned that in other videos. Essentially, he brought in roommates, so he lived free or rent free at that location and paid for the rent as well, and actually made really good cash flow on that home. So again, just creative. And we honestly picked that one up. That was not investor financing. We were able to be creative, and my broker figured out that we could use it as a second home, almost like a vacation home. So the rates were still really good. So there are so many ways you can get creative in real estate and in residential and all kinds of real estate for that matter. But we also picked up another home kind of, again, in this local area. And since my dad, I was putting him in one of our homes that we had, I was able to leverage his credit and show him as the home buyer, and then of course go do all the stuff with the county and basically assign it over, the deed over to me. Gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit more out of the scope for this video, but essentially, yes, he's on the lending documents, but I have overall rights to the home. It gets a little complicated, not again for the scope of this video, but yes, would the bank frown upon that? Probably so. But do they just want their monthly payment? Yes, that is something that you can find in more detail in a lot of videos, a lot of real estate education. But essentially, I am on the deed. Ultimately, I have the home, and it was a way to, again, to secure that with a lower interest rate and whatnot. And then, of course, immediately turn around and have it rented. So many creative ways. And that's ultimately when we ended up here in our beautiful dream home, where there is no chance in hell that 1% rule would ever apply. Although I just thought of something. Actually, what if we were to rent each bedroom out, like in an assisted living format, which I actually almost did years ago, to some golden girls or people that were more affluent, of course, that could pay $2,500 to maybe $5,000 a month. And then we might be in business making some money actually with this oversized home, right? So there are so many ways to get creative. And even like we were doing in the past, where we would buy a home and then rent it out. Can you imagine if you started that when you were younger? So my younger audience, gosh, if you started this when you were in your 20s or your 30s and you just basically moved from home to home and could tolerate that lifestyle, which again, why not? If you're building inventory in your homes and you can turn around and rent them and make cash flow, gosh, if you just did that year after year for a while, it'd be a little rough. But just imagine how your retirement would be set up and the cash flow would be for your lifestyle, especially as those mortgages were paid off by somebody else. And then when you were maybe in your, I don't know, if you started in your 20s and you were, let's say in your 50s, 30-year mortgages, right? Then those things would be paid off. You just have the taxes and maybe insurance. Of course, the insurance would be really low because you wouldn't have, again, a massive loan on something. And yeah, and sorry about all the noise. We got construction around here, but yeah, just imagine, right? So that's sometimes you got to think about those things and be proactive and just get started, because it's just really, it's with a dream and then taking action. And then all of a sudden you've got cash flow and you've got multiple rental properties flowing in, and it's pretty much passive income. So it's just all about, hard work, manifest, think about what you want to do, work on that RAS or reticular activating system, right? To open doors and show what's actually possible and change your paradigm. But anyway, enough with that rant. Now, if you thought tip number 2 was informative with how to buy your first single family investment property, wait until you see what tip number 3 explains. But first, if you're new to the channel and you love learning about real estate investing, smash that subscribe button. Now, tip number 3 is all about running the numbers. Before making an offer, you need to ensure the property will be profitable. And here's how it works. Calculate your potential rental income. Subtract all expenses, including mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, vacancy, etc., and then see what's left over. This is your cash flow. Now, aim for properties that will give you positive cash flow from day one. Now, if finding cash flowing properties seems challenging in your area, here's a little hack. Look for properties you can add value to through renovations or by adding an extra bedroom or bathroom. This can increase your rental income and property value. And I'm all about, again, getting your hands dirty, figuring out ways to put sweat equity in your property. It will pay off, absolutely. And remember, consider the potential for appreciation. Sometimes a property with lower cash flow, but in a rapidly appreciating area, can be a great long-term investment. If you thought tip number 3 was something to consider with how to buy your first single family investment property, well, check out this next way to protect your investment. Now, let's talk about property management. Many new investors underestimate the time and effort required to manage a rental property. From finding and screening tenants to handling maintenance issues, it can be a full frickin' time job, I guarantee it. Here's a little hack again to make property management a little bit easier. Use technology to your advantage. There are many apps and software solutions that can help you automate rent collection, track expenses, and even handle maintenance requests. I actually like TurboTenant. It's a pretty good one. There's many of them out there. Or if you prefer a hands-off approach, consider hiring a professional property management company. Now, while this will definitely eat into your profits, it can save you time and headaches, especially if you're juggling, say, a full-time job alongside your new investment property. Now, if managing a property yourself seems daunting, I guarantee you this next tip should be worth considering. While trying to figure out how to buy your first single-family investment property, you might feel like you need to do everything yourself. But tip number 5 is all about building your team. Successful real estate investors surround themselves with professionals who can provide expertise and support. Once again, here's a hack for you. Network with other local investors. They can often recommend reliable professionals they've worked with, saving you time and potentially costly mistakes. And don't forget about the online communities and forums. These can be great resources for advice, tips, and even partnerships. If you're ready to take action and make your first investment property purchase happen, then don't miss tip number 6. Our 6th tip is all about doing your due diligence and getting a thorough inspection. Extremely, extremely important. When it comes to investment properties, what you don't know can hurt you financially. A comprehensive inspection can reveal hidden issues that could turn your investment into a frickin' money pit. Don't just rely on the standard home inspection. Consider bringing in specialists for major systems like the roof, HVAC, and foundation. And yes, it will definitely cost a little bit more up front, but it could save you thousands in unexpected repairs down the line. And another pro tip, always attend the inspection in person. Go hang out with them, be their best buddy, take them a case of beer, a bottle of water, whatever it may be, because this gives you a chance also to ask questions and get a real feel for the property's condition. And don't be afraid to negotiate repairs or price reductions based on the inspection findings. If you found these tips helpful so far in learning how to buy your first single-family investment property, well, you're going to love this next little bonus tip. Consider house hacking as your entry into real estate investing. This strategy involves buying a property, living in one part of it, and then renting out the rest of it. It's a fantastic way to get started with lower risk and better financing options. Here's why it's brilliant. You can use owner-occupied financing, which often means lower interest rates and down payments. Plus, your tenants are essentially helping you to pay your mortgage. And the best part, you're gaining valuable experience as a landlord while living on site, making it easier to manage your property and address any issues very quickly. So there you have it. 6 essential tips plus a bonus strategy for buying your first single-family home as an investment property. Remember, success in real estate investing comes down to careful planning, thorough research, and smart decision making. Let's recap our key points. Location is crucial. Understand your financing options. Run the numbers carefully. Consider property management strategies. Build a strong team. Never skip due diligence and inspection. And consider house hacking to get started. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more real estate investing tips and strategies. And hey, leave a comment below telling us which tip you found most useful, or if you have any questions about getting started with your first investment property. Thanks for watching, and remember, your journey to financial freedom through real estate starts with that first property. Happy investing, and I'll see you in the next video.